I hope everyone had a nice break and welcome back to the end of the world. So, as you know, World War III has started. The United States and Israel have started to attack Iran. And we are now in the fourth day of this war. And we can expect this war to last for many weeks, possibly also for many years. But I promise you that after this war is done, the world will never be the same again, Ali. All right, so let's go over some basic facts about what's happened so far. So in the early morning of Saturday in Tehran, the Israelis and Americans launched a decapitation strike against the Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of Iran. Now, there are arguments and disputes about as to what happened. The Americans and Israelis said that they had real intelligence about where the leader was, and so they sent airplanes to just bomb the crap out of the place. They also had a spy who was able to record the body of the dead Ayatollah, and then this was announced. At first, the Iranians denied this, and the Iranians insisted he was still alive. But eventually, state media admitted that he did die in the airstrike. But then what they also said is that the Ayatollah, he's 86 years old, and he chose to die. He could have gone to Moscow, but instead he chose to stay in Tehran and die for his people. But not only that, but he died along many of his relatives. He died along with his daughter, his son-in-law, his grandchildren. So many of the family died in this assault. Also, there's been reporting that he had prostate cancer. Okay, so he's going to die fairly soon as well. So what you need to understand first about the war is that even though the Americans and Israelis claim great success in decapitating the leadership of the Iranians, from the Iranian perspective, this is a martyrdom, okay? The idea of martyrdom, which forces jihad, to sacrifice yourself for your religion, sacrifice yourself for the common good. So think of the death of Khamenei as a sacrifice, a self-sacrifice, in order to motivate the Iranians in this war, okay? So that's the first thing you need to understand. That for the Iranians, this is not a geopolitical war. This is not an economic war. This is not a war of resistance. This is a jihad, okay? It's a war against the great Satan to avenge their leader. They will fight to the death, all right? That's number one. Number two is this. Also that morning, when the Ayatollah was killed, they really struck a school in the south of Tehran, killing about 150 school children. These are girls in primary school. And again, there's a lot of debate and argument as to what happened. The Israelis said that, first of all, the school was next to a military base. We were targeting a military base. And second of all, it wasn't us which struck the school. It was a air defense missile that went off course, okay? And the Iranians insisted, no, the Israelis purposely attacked the school to kill the school children. And then you're like, why would the Israelis do that? But then these few years, well, we've seen what they've done in Gaza, in Palestine, to the Palestinians. And it's pretty consistent what the Israelis have been doing, all right? So this action against the Israelis, it's meant to show to themselves and the world that we are now all in, okay? We've made the sacrifice. We are now committed to this war, to winning this war at all costs. And this action has also provoked the Iranian people to resist with their full might, okay? So I want you to keep this in mind. And again, we don't have complete evidence that it's the Israelis who did this, but given past actions from the Israelis, this is fairly consistent with what they've done, okay? So we can assume that this is something the Israelis did. Why they did this, what the purpose is something we will discuss as we move on, okay? It's very complicated. Next, I want to show you this. This is Dubai. And Dubai is considered one of the wealthiest, safest cities in the world. There are thousands, tens of thousands of Westerners who move to Dubai because it's clean, you don't pay any taxes, you make a lot of money, and there are great restaurants. And this is really the economic model of Dubai. It's one of the GCC countries, okay, the Gulf coastal countries. All right, let's continue. So we will know how this war develops just based on geography, okay? So this is a map. And this map, even if you don't really know the war, if you don't know the participants, even if you don't know the weaponry, this map will tell you exactly how this war will progress. All right, so some certain things to keep in mind about this map. This is what we call this area, okay, really small, but it's 33 kilometers wide, okay? People can swim across it. It's really, really narrow, okay? This small area, guys, it's called the Strait of Hormuz, all right? And it's important because it's really the center of the world. This one area is the nexus, the pivot of the world. Let me explain why. First of all, from the GCC, you have 20% of all the world's oil flowing through this narrow strait. Where does it go, guys? It goes to Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, China, Japan. India depends on 60% of its oil from this area. China depends on 40%. Japan, 75%. Prime Minister Takaichi of Japan has said that, listen, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, we'll run out of oil in about 8-9 months. The entire Japanese economy would collapse in 8-9 months if the Strait of Hormuz were to close. And guess what? The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? So we can expect that the entire global economy will suffer greatly over the next few months. All right, so that's point number one. Point number two is, okay, so the GCC sends oil across the Strait of Hormuz, and what do they get back in return? Food, guys. All right, so people don't appreciate the GCC, but it is really the linchpin of the American empire. Because what is the American empire? The American empire is the petrodollar. All right? The idea of the petrodollar is this: the US dollar is worth nothing. It's only valuable if people want it. But the GCC says that if you want oil from us, you have to pay us in US dollars. Okay? Then that is the basis of the value of the US dollar. So if the GCC collapses, the American economy and the American empire both collapse at the same time. The problem, though, is the GCC is an artificial construct of empire. It does not exist naturally. Why? Because there's no food, there's no oil, no water. Okay, guys? No food, no water. So these cities are able to grow in the millions because of all these petrodollars flowing in. If you close off the Strait of Hormuz, there's no food coming in, right? They're all going to starve. How much food does the GCC get from overseas? 80%. 80% of all the food it consumes comes from overseas, that it imports. It doesn't grow by itself, it imports. All right? So the Strait of Hormuz is really key. And again, the Iranians will close it in order to strangle the global economy and therefore bankrupt the American empire. All right. Second thing you will notice is these mountains. These mountains is what we call Iran. All right, this is Iran. This is GCC. Okay, this is not a fair matchup, right? These are mountains. And what can you do in mountains? We can hide rocket bases. You can hide drone bases. You can hide missiles. And that's the entire Iranian offensive strategy, all right? From here, they can hide missiles and drones from which to attack the GCC. And what are they attacking? They're attacking three things, right? They're attacking American military bases, American military bases. That's number one. Okay. Is it possible for the Americans to defend against these attacks? The answer is no. It's not. It's the silliest thing in the world. You have all these bases in the Middle East, but you cannot defend them against the Iranians. That's kind of strange. Okay, that's number one. Number two is oil and energy. How hard is it to blow up an oil field with a drone? Not hard at all. Can you defend these oil fields? No, you cannot. All right. Number three, and this is most important, is water. Okay, you guys don't know this, but the GCC has little access to fresh water. So the only way that it can produce water is what we call desalination plants. Okay, these factories that take salt water and then through an electrochemical process turn it into fresh water for the population to use. 60% of the water supply in the GCC comes from desalination plants, okay? 60%. Is it hard to blow up a desalination plant using a drone? The answer is, it's very easy. You understand? Okay? So you have this absurd situation where Iran is a mountain fortress where it can hide its offensive capacity, and the GCC, it's just this desert, this flat desert, and it is exposed to attack, and there's nothing it can do about it, okay? So at any point in this war, the Iranians can choose to just destroy the entire GCC, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Well. I thought to start a bit differently and to share with you Armageddon in a different light. Think about it for 1 second. As a man of the Most High, it is my job to prepare people. And it's very unfortunate that when you minister from the Bible or any holy text, people are quite opinionated. But when you hear outside entities, usually they become a bit frightened. You know, Christ did mention this. You won't be loved amongst your own. You'll be loved amongst outsiders, people who are not of your own kind, right? And this is one of the professors I have been watching for a while, and man, his accuracy is actually frightening, because he hasn't been wrong. That's the thing. Now, I don't want to say they're a special person or something like that, but what I can say is this. If you didn't listen to me, he just gave you a even worse scenario. Okay. So they said that they were anointed to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon. What is Armageddon? You just heard it from this professor. They're going to cut everything off. Now, if the Middle East falls, Europe and America will fall with it. That is just as clear as day. But that is also true. From someone having been to the Middle East several times, um, and Africa, and different countries, been to Japan, thank you Most High, Korea, thank you Most High, Djibouti, thank you Most High, right? And what I can tell you is he is 220%. The Middle East feels like kind of like an Elysium, like a artificial intelligence world. It's not real. Now, the only place I can speak for that feels real and looks real is Oman. Of course, Yemen is, the same way, but they've been in constant war. But Oman and Yemen are as normal as it gets when it comes to in some parts of Iraq is so they've done a lot of development from that war that happened years ago, okay, decades ago. So um, they're just kind of, I wouldn't say they're just kind of getting back on their feet, but they're doing much better than what was before. But they're still not a Kuwait. They're still not a Qatar. They're still not UAE. They're still not Saudi or the KSA as they call it, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's artificial. Now, what years ago there was a blockade, right? In Saudi Arabia blocked off Qatar from getting food and different sources of things. And the people, they were limited to things. But you see, now it's a bit different because it is true that someone, it really hasn't been confirmed, but someone, whether it's the US or Israel or Iran, is attacking not only military bases in all the GCC countries for the most part, except for Yemen and except for Oman, but attacking oil tanks, I know, right off the coast of Oman and Dukun, and some drones were intercepted just the other day ago in Oman. But everything else is hitting in the other nations, the oil and the military bases, the CIA agents, their headquarters, which is quite wild because I had no idea the CIA had agents in the Middle East, which is kind of crazy. But for the it's also kind of strange how they got these information. Kind of strange, but whatever. None of my business. The crazy part is everything that he said is happening and is going to happen and it's going to accelerate. Now, Trump did say this war would take weeks. Now, remember, they said they were going to strike Iran after Ramadan, and they went and strike them on the Jewish Purim. Yes, that's right. They strike them on the Jewish Purim. So I want you to understand what we know Purim as for Esther and Mordecai and the children of Israel in the time of Xerxes, right, is that Esther was used as a form of, as a hedge of mercy to ask for peace and fasting and deliverance, right? But these individuals, they looked at it as deliverance means to attack our enemy. So they began letting the bombs drop. So, where does this lead the world? Now, what he mentioned about Japan saying they have 8 to 9 months before they go in a food shortage. When I said you should be scared of this, when them saying they're causing Armageddon, Armageddon is utter destruction. And because you don't see bombs, missiles, drones looking to blow up in your region, the problem is you don't believe the severity of Armageddon. But Armageddon is just a cataclysmic event that reshapes the world. And this will bring in the beast system to a greater length, AI to a greater length, and a global recession. And we know, brothers and sisters, okay, listen here now. We know from the last run in with the world governments, when things stopped, okay, all they did was tell you stay at home. We'll just keep the essential workers out. You'll work very minimum. And they started reshaping policies. Wow. People were afraid of the news they were giving. And before they knew it, they were losing their jobs. They were losing their houses. They were losing their salaries. They were losing their savings. People were losing things left and right. My belief is this, that at the end of this war, the internet will be no more for people like me. It'll be a complete surveillance system. And eventually they're going to go after people who didn't agree with them. The Bible tells you this. And a lot of people are going to get taken. A lot of people are going to, and don't worry, if you're a common folk, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, but if you're a common folk, meaning like if you're a congregant and you're not a teacher, if they feel like you couldn't stir up people to change, they're not going to worry about you at all. You will get the other persecution when you have to deal with your everyday neighbors. But the AI and the elite securities are for the teachers, the ministers, the leaders who could shake things up, who can share things, who can now think about this, right? The Bible talks about The ministers, the shepherds leaving the flock and allowing the flock to fend for themselves. So I want you to understand that a minister, a leader, was not only supposed to teach you knowledgeable things to survive, knowledge and wisdom and stability, but they were supposed to teach you how to defend yourself when the time comes. Not if, when. It will happen. And the masses aren't really recognizing that this is a bad situation. They're not. They're just like, go America, go, yeah, let's remember what they did to their people. They killed all their people who were protesting. Well, they truly are going to have to fall. Now, with that being said, you may ask, well, why is this happening in the Middle East? Well, let's read the Apocalypse of Daniel. And I've read this before, okay? And you see, the problem is no one wants to listen. That's truly the problem. No one wants to listen. I'm convinced, just like the Bible says, many are called, few are chosen. Do you understand the internet is going to be some people's death sentence? And you may say, what does that mean? You don't think the Most High is going to judge you based on what you spent your time looking up? How much time you put in looking at these videos that people make for free? It's going to be your death sentence. Little do people know. All right, let's begin. This is the Apocalypse of Daniel. According to the God spoken word, which says, when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, nation will fight against nation and kingdom against kingdom, earthquakes, plagues, and deviation of stars. Then the bush which restrains the sons of Hagar will dry up. The sons of Hagar, huh? We'll go with footnotes. The sons of Hagar. Look at this now. Hagar, maid servant to Sarah, who gave birth to Ishmael by Abraham. Hence, the Byzantines commonly referred to the Arabs and later to the Turks, whom they thought to be the descendants of Hagar, Ishmael, as Agarenes and Ishmaelites. Keep in mind what it said. Hence, whom they thought. Whom they thought. Okay, let's keep going. And 3 sons of Hagar will go forth into Great Babylonia, whose name is Oshez, and another Axaphar, and the third Morphosar. Okay, just sharing now. Just sharing. Okay. You see that? It says an Arab caliph. Hmm. Just sharing with you now. This is the pseudegraphia, biblical text, talking about the Arab caliph. Hmm. And Ishmael will come down the region of the land of swift passage, Ishmael, and he will establish his camp in Chalcedon across from Byzantium. And the other one will come to Antioch, Syria, Sicilia, Iberian Anatolia, the Thracian country in Smyrna, as far as the seven-hilled city. Hmm. We know the seven-hilled city was known as Rome. Hmm. Okay, we're tracking. He will spill Roman blood, and another will come to the region of Persia, into the Gallian country, the Armenian border, and the city of Trebizond. And he will come forth, he will come to the region of the land of Meropes, and he will massacre blank children from 2 and 3 years old and younger. He will consume them by the sword. And the third one will come down the regions of the north, Mesoaspolis and Sinopolis and Zalakos, and regions of Chrysia Petra, in the well-lit valley of Bithynia and Daphnesia and Chrysiopolis and Demulion, as far as the seven-hill city. Now, keep following now. And therefore all these will slaughter an infinite multitude of Romans, from 2 to 3 years old and younger, and they will gather together toward the sea. And in their ships will be a myriad of myriads, and there will be other infinite and innumerable multitudes. And in that place many will deny our Lord, Yeshua Christ, and the holy gifts, and will follow the apostates. Hmm. 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 And every sacrifice will cease from the churches, and the liturgy of God will be mocked, and the priests will be as laymen, and Ishmael will cry out with a great voice, boasting and saying, where is the God of the Romans? There is no one helping them, for we have defeated them completely. For truly the three sons of Hagar will roar against the Romans, and they will cross over against the seven-hilled city towards Byzantium. And conferring, they will say among themselves, come, let us make a bridge in the sea with boats and transport horses for ourselves to Byzantium, the seven-hilled city. But the rulers of the Romans and the magnates of the seven-hilled city will flee to the glens of the mountains, and there will be fear and affliction, and there will be much necessity of mountains, and the people of the seven-hilled city will be afflicted by the sword. Woe, woe then! How will the orthodox faith of the Christians and the invincible power of the honorable and life-giving cross be overcome? Just keep in mind, I didn't write this. Okay? Just keep in mind, The last time I mentioned this, someone, got a little fit there. You take it up with Daniel. How about that in the Most High? But hear, brethren, that because of their iniquity, God forbears. And the first will set up his couch across from Byzantium, and he will strike, and they will be stricken. And then the rulers of the Romans blaspheme, saying, Woe, woe, neither in heaven do we have a king, nor on earth. And with this word, the Lord will incline his mercy toward the Romans and toward their revenge, and will repay justice to his enemies. And there will be a great sound from heaven, and a fearful earthquake, and a voice from the angel from heaven. And the Lord will incline his head, and will set his fury against the sons of Hagar, and upon the feet of Ishmael. And the Lord will lift up the cowardice of Romans, and put it into the hearts of Ishmael, and the courage of the Ishmaelites into the hearts of the Romans. And the Lord will raise up a king of the Romans, who people say is dead and useful for nothing, who people think died many years before. The Lord was reserving this man in the outer country of Persia, and this is his name, that which begins with the letter K of the alphabet. Now, I'm going to share this, right? Reserving this man from the outer country of Persia. Okay? From the outer country of Persia. Like, okay. And they're saying it refers to Constantine. But something's not right here, because they're coming from outer country of Persia. This is his name, that which begins with the letter K of the alphabet. And this man is coming to the seven-hilled city toward the evening, and he will prepare for his enemies. And on Saturday morning, as the sun rises, he will engage in the great war with nation and the sons of Hagar. And both he and the two small boys and the rulers of the Romans will gather together in Byzantium. Even the priest of the Romans and the bishops and abbots who are found will bear weapons of war. You know, you know, I thought it was interesting. Two things. One, this war was started on a Sabbath, which is a Saturday. But two, the name of the Ayatollah was Khomeini, which starts with a K. I thought was interesting. But it says, who people think died many years before. I don't know now. It could be something else, but I thought that was something to consider. Nonetheless, this war that we've seen started on a Saturday. And it's been against what? Now, here's the thing. I know it's kind of like worded weird because it says, "Oh, the Lord will raise up a king of the Romans, who people say is dead and useful for nothing, reserving this man to the outer country of Persia." But then it says there's this war that starts on a Saturday morning, Sabbath morning, and what will happen? And they will engage in a great war with the nation and the sons of Hagar, both he and the two boys. And so what's happening now, whom people call Hagar, or whom they call Hagar, are exchanged in something, right? Whatever we want to call it. It says, and the rulers of the Romans will gather together in Byzantium. Then even the priests of the Romans and the bishops and the abbots who are found will bear weapons of war. Now let's keep going. And when he has gathered those together with the two small boys, that the king will join in a mighty war with the nation of the sons of Hagar. So the two small boys is just an analogy, by the way. Just letting you know. And he will massacre them like the grass of a reed being burned by fire. And from their blood a 3-year-old bull will drown, and the king alone will pursue 1,002 small boys, myriads. And Ishmael and the sons of Hagar will be butchered to the end. And there will be war and great bloodshed, such as has not been since the foundation of the world. The blood will be mixed in the sea 1.5 miles. And in the streets of the seven hill city, horses will be submerged, drowning in the blood. And from that nation and from Ishmael, there will remain only 3/10 of men. And the sons of Ishmael will serve the Romans to the end, and will serve the chief donkey drivers of the seven hill city for 30 years. So it's kind of going off because obviously we don't have 30 years, right? So it's kind of going off like because if you look at the history of like per se the UAE and Qatar, the the president or the chief or whatever they call him, the prince of Qatar owns pretty much all of London. Why is that? Because their lineage goes back to London. They're not Arabs. The leaders are not. Okay. And the same as the UAE. They actually, if you look really close into the history, they've had contracts and ties, and they did no difference than like what they say with the US presidents and governments and stuff, where they're all family. Okay. And they they may look brown, they may look Arab, but they're actually through the lineage of the um, Queen Elizabeth and their people. Okay. And the nature of Ishmael in the sword and in captivity is more bitter and more grievous beyond that than the Romans, of that than the Romans. The Roman race will desire to see a trace of Ishmael and will not find it. And then the prophetic word will be fulfilled that says, how will one pursue 1,002 remove myriads, unless the Lord rejected them and the Lord gave them over, meaning cleaning a whole race of people. I want you to think about that. Cleaning a whole race of people. Why would the Most High allow that? Let's keep going. And the king of the Romans will subdue every enemy and adversary under his feet. And the scepter of that king will be long lived, likewise that of the two small boys. And his fame will go forth from east to the west, and there will be one empire, one empire, one empire. And no one will resist him because this man has come from God and he will cause all war to cease. What you think about that now? And there will be great peace, and every city and fortress will be built, and there will be many altars acceptable to God and in all the civilized world. And all the islands and mountains will be inhabited, and the bread and the wine and the olive oil and the gold and the silver will increase in all the earth. No, that's not right now, but let's just keep going. And that king will cause all hostility to cease upon the earth, and they will make their weapons into skins, and his reign will be for 36 years, and the rulers of the Romans will desire to join in war, but will not find it. Oh, think about that. The what does it say? The rulers of the Romans. And we know the Romans to be who? So they like war. And all the parameters of the earth will fear them. And the king will glorify God because he is in reign. In his reign, God gave to him the good things of the earth, which he did not give since the foundation of the world. And the king will fall asleep in peace. And his two small boys shall be taken up in peace after 33 years. And after him there will arise from the north another king, and work in great impurities and many injustices. He will also work great iniquities. And he will couple mother and son, brother and sister, and he will bring the monks out of the holy monasteries and will join the monasteries together and will cause the nuns to lie with his nation. And that's just mixing of the religions and kind of like ministering their specific doctrines. And he will work great transgression. Woe, woe then to the Christian race. It's kind of makes me feel like this is almost like Constantine. Okay. But anyway, woe to those who are pregnant, and the praises of God also will cease. And the Lord God will call fire from heaven and will consume them. And after him, a foul and alien woman will reign in the seven hilled city, and she will settle on the southern side of the seven hilled city. Therefore, woe to the Christian race. And once again, I've read this before, and so many people were hurt. Take it up with Daniel. Take it up with the Most High. I don't. I'm not making this up. And therefore, woe to the Christian race. Woe to you, seven healed Babylon, because the Byzantium of God will flee from you, and your holiness and your temples will flee from you, and your glory will fall. And woe to you, seven healed Babylon, the new Byzantium. And woe to you, the Christian race. Again, there will be an inroad of nations again, fear among the Romans, again, slaughter and disturbances for the Roman nation. Churches will be destroyed. The faith has been dissolved. Woman conceived babies of misbelievers, and therefore woe to you, wretched Babylon, the mother of cities, because God will incline his wrath, which emits fire. And your high walls, borders, will fall, and there will remain in you one pillar of Constantine the Great, so that they who sail the sea lament there, and furthermore, the kingdom will be taken up from him and will be given to Rome. Now, that was quite a lot, wasn't it? I want to kind of show you some other stuff. And I know some people they get so hurt about that, and hey, I tried to tell you. I tried to tell you. It just it's sad because you want to share the truth, but the problem is people are always gonna form their own feelings. They're always gonna form their own feelings. So, since you don't believe me, you want to have your own personal feelings, take it from these folks. When when they say woe to the Christian race, that's it. Fair use.
It's the end of days. You're going to need the iron of Esav, which represents Edom, which is the West, Europe, and the Americas, to get intermixed with Ishmael, which is basically Arabs and Muslims. How in the world was this ever going to happen if not for this refugee crisis? At the end of days, you're going to have this intermixing between Esav, Edom, which is the West, and the East, which is the Muslims um, and the Arabs, making this through this influx into the world. They're going to have a far larger birth rate than the indigenous people there, and they're going to sort of conquer by number. And there are many different sources for this, where there will be many, many people killed and so on and so forth. So the idea of having these refugees come into Europe, it's no longer a matter of whether it's right or wrong. It's just simply a fulfillment of what it was meant to be all along. This is the fulfillment of the Hazal and the prophecies. This has to happen, and this is just another sign that we're nearing, the completion of the tikkun of the entire world.
But we know one thing, right? That when it comes to the classic Rome, which is Europe, they're finished.
And you don't have to be a prophet or a great analysis for that. You have to open the TV or the internet and see that exactly what was prophesied then, that the sons of Ishmael are going to go and cause havoc around the world. So France is completely barbecued. England is next. Now half of Europe is completely half dead. Now look what's going on in America. So, now in a country near you.
Asking what's going to be with the Goyim when Mashiach comes. Will they be destroyed and annihilated? Someone asked, who cares? Okay. As a nation, they'll cease to exist, even as individuals. It's every individual, no survivors. Not only as a nation, they'll cease to exist, even as individuals. In modern terminology, they call it cultural genocide. They'll be annihilated, but you basically learn there's going to be cultural genocide. That, you know what, the Goyim as they exist as Goyim, if they have some, that's done with.
No, that may not be enough for you. So here.
And the reality is, every single time we were in a position of power, it's because there were a few Jews that were lending money to the Goyim, and many times it happened that they charged them high rates, and the Goyim got angry, and they revolted. Why? Nobody wants to pay the high interest. So what do? Instead of paying the interest, they kill you. Simple. All of the Jewish people, they are part of creating the next Holocaust that's coming to America. They are creating the next Holocaust that's coming to America. Why? History shows us what we've done, what transpired. What we've done, what transpired, what we're doing, and what's transpiring.
Well, shall I say any more? Now, why is this happening to the Middle East? Excuse me. Or what they call the Middle East, right? Now, let's take a look. Here we have the Apocalypse of Daniel. Okay. And the Most High says, I'm to get rid of these people. Why? This is Afran Saeed, Department of Arabic and Islamic Studies, Georgetown University, USA. The ethnic origin of Edomites. Since everyone wants to keep saying Edomites are white people, let's go. In arguing the ethnic origins of Edomites, I am only following the conclusion of who understood that they were an Arab people. They are not. They're not white. They're Arabs. Unlike the Hurrians, whom they displaced and replaced, they replace people. So you think someone is this. The Edomites were a Semitic people who belonged to the waves of Semitic migration from the Arabian Peninsula to the Fertile Crescent, such as the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Arameans. But more relevantly, they can be placed among the groups of Arab peoples to be found in Transjordan during this period, such as the Ammonites, the Moabites, who erupted into the might to be called Transjordania Tripartia through its two gateways, Wadi Sahan and the Tabukia in northern Hijaz. The Jews rejected them as Israelites. So what else could they have been but Arabs, in the sense of whatever the term meant in that period? They were as Arab as the Ammonites and the Moabites, both considered Arab peoples, perhaps even more so as they lived even further to the south than either of these two peoples in the deepest southern corner of the Fertile Crescent and immediately adjacent to Arabia and its two gateways. In support of the position, attention may be drawn to the fact that the term Edom is close to Duma, which is one of the 12 sons of Ishmael in the Bible. In the Bible, man. So we're gonna knock down all the Israelite. And as also the toponym for a well-known location to the Wadi Serhan in northern Arabia. Table of Nations in Genesis is not always accurate, but in this case it appears to be so, at least in the sense that it assigns Duma to the sons of Ishmael, who are and generally recognized Arabs. This is the extent of the value of Genesis, but the toponym Duma is more important than the personal name in Genesis, since it is the toponym is identified with the term Edom, then the Arab or the Arabian origin of the Edomites can be inferred without the help of the Bible. Edom is phonetically close to Duma, and presumption is that the Arab, again in the sense of whatever that the term meant in the period, people who inhabited the location moved through the Wadi Serhan, one of the gateways of Bilad Asham, and into southern Jordan, whence they were driven into Palestine by the Nabateans. Identifying Edom with Duma not only relates that Edomites to the Arabs but also points to their exact provenance in Arabia whence they came. As a result, Edomites ceased to be a people who suddenly appeared in Jordan and Palestine, and those antecedents before that time remain obscure. As is well known, Dumat was the center of an important Arab kingdom whose kings and queens are known and whose relations with the powerful Semitic empires of Mesopotamia are also known from inscription. They were in possession of strategic site in northern Arabia, hence the campaigns against them by the rulers of Mesopotamia. Identification of Duma with Edom, despite the phonetic closeness of the two terms, may still be doubtful in an initial plosive sound E and A missing in Duma, although the consonant's trilateral root are present. This brings me to the second new item which clinches the identification, namely the fact that Duma was originally pronounced Aduma or Adumatu with the initial plosive sound, which is how it appears in the inscriptions of the Assyrian kings. The site or place called Aduma or Dumato thus relives Duma as its apocryphal status and confirms identification of Arabian Aduma with biblical Edom, that of Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Josephus. So you wonder why the Arabs are not doing anything for the people in Gaza? They're rich. They got what they want. they got the kingdom. They got the land. They got everything. All of it is a game to them. Remember, Psalms 83. This carries important implications for the history of Edom, initially in Arabia and that of the Fertile Crescent, where the Edomites settled first in southern Jordan but were forced into southern Palestine by the Nabatians. So now what does that mean? The people in Palestine are who? Edomites. Ho, 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 ho. And what is the Most High doing? Clearing them all out. Now, I don't support death for anyone, but Most High is doing what he's doing because everybody and their mama over there is lying about who they is. These two stages might be summarized as follows. The identification provides biblical Edom with Arabian historical background in which it was not a minor entity but a power in Arabia in the center, which was a strategic site of Duma called Dumat al-Jandal. The best evidence is the epigraphic, provides details of their life and history. One of the Assyrian inscriptions, that of Esarhaddon, states how his father Sennacherib conquered Duma and captured its queen along with the images of its deities. There having been a respectable force in Arabia might explain why Edomites were able to retain their identity when they settled into the Fertile Crescent and later produced forceful personalities during the Herodian period. The identification could also explain why Edomites left their ancestral home in Arabia and moved into the Fertile Crescent. Their center, Dumat al-Jandal, attracted the unwelcome attention of the most powerful Mesopotamian empire, the Syrians, who terrorized the Fertile Crescent in Arabia. As a result, all or most of them decided to move on. The move of the Fertile Crescent might also explain their name, what they called themselves, and when they were domiciled in Duma is not clear, but after they left and moved into the Fertile Crescents, they were known as Edomites. When peoples or individuals move, they are often referred to by the place they came from. The Arab world is full of families who derive their names from the towns or regions they had come from. It is noteworthy that after the Edomites moved, their name retained the initial plosive sound A or E, a sure sign of their place of origin, but the laws of phonetics eventually caught up with the Abraham toponym, which after centuries appeared elided and apocryphated, as Duma, as a common feature in the colloquial pronunciation of Arabic names. The movement of this Arabian people from Duma in the peninsula to the Edom of Jordan and Palestine, as well as their adoption of the name Edom, is paralleled by the movement of another Arab people from roughly the same area in the peninsula to the Fertile Crescent in the 5th century AD. This reveals a recurring pattern of migration and will strengthen the conclusion about the movement of the Edomites reaching this place. This later movement is that of the Salahids or the Zucamids, Arab for Derati, who lived in what had become the Byzantine province of Arabia. Byzantine province, Byzantine province, Byzantine province of Arabia. They had immigrated from a place referred to in Ptolemy's geography, that's from Egypt, by the way, Zagmace, which is an explorer located in Wadi Sahan, in which has correctly identified the Arabic name of the Jam group. This group was also named after toponym Dejam in Arabic, broken from the plural of Dejam Ima. The history of this group is doubly relevant to that of the Edomites in the sense that they too were subsequently displaced and replaced with the superior power of another Arab group, the Ghassanids, in much same way that the Edomites were later replaced and replaced the Nabateans. Wow. And you know the Nabateans being Jordan. But thus, a pattern can be seen in the movement of the Arab peoples during the pre-Islamic period of the Arabian Peninsula and into the Fertile Crescent, owing at least a part to political and military pressure. So much for history of the Edom. So much for the history of Edom and its Arabian phase, which the identification of the biblical Edom with Assyrian, Arabian Duma, and Adumate has made possible. Biblical Edom will now be discussed in the context of light shed upon its Arabian predecessor. Wow. I mean, I don't want to keep going. Should I? I'll keep going. How about that? The second stage of the history of Edom is well known as it became part of the Roman and Jewish history. They tricked you. From the settlement of Pompeii in 63 BC and is mentioned in literary rather than epigraphic sources, which had been the case during the first phase of its history. The new light thrown on the history of the Edomites by identification of Edom with Duma calls for a new approach to their history and is a challenge to the cultural analyst. The new approach consists of detangling Edomite history from Roman and Jewish history, placing it in its pre-Islamic Arab context. So they mixed it all together on purpose. This will be a truly new approach to Edomite history, which historians have typically linked to Roman and Jewish history, recorded as it was by a major Jewish historian, Josephus. This process should not be difficult, as the Jews utterly rejected the Edomites as non-Israelites who overthrew their own Hasmonean dynasty and through Roman power ruled oppressively. Indeed, the name Edom became the name for hated Rome itself in Jewish writings. It became the name. It became the name for hated Romans. Doesn't mean that they were them. What then is the new context within which the history of the Edomites as an Arab people be understood? The main factor which affected these Arab peoples during the period in question was the constant gravitational pull which the Fertile Crescent, with its material and cultural wealth, exerted on those who lived in the arid Arabian Peninsula. This pull set in motion waves of migration from the peninsula into the Fertile Crescent, which resulted in profound transformation of these peoples once they settled there. Over the course of the last half century, I have discussed three ways of the peninsular Arab migration into the Fertile Crescent during the 4th, 5th, and 6th centuries AD, and it is within the context of these migrations that Edomite history can most fruitfully be evaluated. Within the context of these migrations, the Edomites stand out as a unique of all these people. They were the ones who underwent the most profound cultural transformation from their origins as an Arabian people living in a primitive life and Duma. They became a vibrant community that was profoundly influenced by the three major cultural currents of the Fertile Crescent at that time: Judaism, Hellenism, and Romanization. Indeed, some of the results of these powerful influences have survived in the region until the present day. This illustrated by the career of Herod the Great and the lover of building apparel unapparelled by any of the other personality in the pre-Islamic period of migration, who in doing so set the tone for his descendants. Judaism, for Judaism, he built the second temple on the grandest scale, did, even though he did so to curry popular favor. As a He erected a monumental buildings associated with Greek and Greek culture, not only in Judea, but also in other parts of the Near East. He also built structures associated with the Romans and found polias such as Caesarea and Sebastia in honor of Augustus. His descendants followed in his wake who contributed much to the urbanization and pacification of the region, as well as to the eradication of paganism. In the spiritual history of the Arabs, the Edomites represent the adoption by an Arab people of first Judaism, then Christianity, and finally Islam. What? And so no wonder. So if Esau is the father of the Edomites, then that means, and they have changed the religion to have people worship them. Oh, no wonder why the Most High want to get rid of them. Gotcha. Jewish monotheism was always adopted by other Arab peoples, but the Edomites were the ones most profoundly influenced by it, since they became completely Judaized, at least formally, although their rulers may not have been the most pious of converts. It was in their adoption of Judaism that the Edomites wrote a chapter in human history, as they left their mark not only on Jewish history, but also in its daughter religion, Christianity, as their culture was flourishing at the time, which witnessed the birth of the later. Thus, they left their mark on the two world religions. Who would have thought before the Arabs were Muslims, they were Christians? After their contribution to Judaism, the Edomites became involved in the fortunes of Christianity and influenced a number of important events in history of that religion. Herod the Great is associated with the massacre of the innocents. His son Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee, Perea, beheaded John the Baptist. Agrippa I, his grandson, treated St. Paul well, contributing to the decision to send him to Rome for trial as a Roman citizen, an important decision in the life of the 13th apostle of the Gentiles. This Re-evaluation of the Edomites as an Arab people inevitably calls for the discussion of biblical Job and his book. So much has been written on him, his ethnic origin, and on the book as a masterpiece, not only of biblical Hebrew literature, but even world literature, because they also took things out of the book of Job as well. An extravagant claim has been put forward that his book was merely a translation of an original Arabic text, which I've seen that too. For a minimalist like myself, however, the following facts are relevant to this discussion. There is no doubt that Job was not an Israelite, as demonstrated by the statements in the first chapter. He belonged to the land of Uz. Sabians attacked his oxen and his children. The onomastaskin of his three friends and their provenance. If the hypothesis of the original Arab text is to be rejected, it should be noted that Arabism had been in the book by Hebraeus, which only an Arabic lexicon could explain. So that means that before Arabs were Muslims, they were following the children of Israel. Wow. They just took things of their own accord and twisted everything. Well, yeah. From these two observations, it follows that Job was an Arab who, other than an Arab, would have used Arabic in the pre-Islamic era before it became the universal language of Islam when non-Arab Muslims used it. Job's Arab tribal affiliations remain unclear. However, his God is none other than, which links him explicitly to Judaism and reveals him as an Arab convert. From these three premises, it is natural to include that Job was an Edomite who belonged to the Arab people who adopted the religion whose God was, namely, and remember, there's no J, and it's more of what? Aramaic. So this is not real. The name is not real, though. And you can look up the name of God in Aramaic. It's Elah. Okay, that's why in the Muslims, when they take their Shahada, Ilah, they don't even say Allah, they say Ilah, because they understand, right? As my conclusion of the Arab identity of Edomites concur with those of Avi Yonah, so do they concur with those of Robert Pfeiffer, a distinguished Old Testament scholar who argued that Job was not an Israelite but an Edomite. He did not say, however, that he was an Arab, but if Yonah's conclusion about the Arab identity, Edomites are accepted, to which the identification of Edom with Adumate in Arabia proposed in this paper may be added. The inevitable conclusion is that Job was both Edomite and Arab. If Herod is the greatest figure in the political and cultural history of the Edomites, Job is his counterpart in their literary history. As an Arab, he could figure, albeit in a vague and ambiguous sense, in the history of pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, which is shrouded in obscurity in the distant past. However, regardless of the ethnic origin, the book of Job remains as it must part of the Hebrew rather than the Arabic literature, as it is in Hebrew that the work has survived, notwithstanding the Arabism within it. Full stop. Now, one, woe to the Christian race, because Christians is liars too. They lie on Christ, they lie on the doctrine. Woe to the Ishmaelites, the Edom. They lied, they lied, they lied. They twist everything. They twist everything. That's right. They twist everything inside. They'll twist your mama's arm if they could. You want to know why? And then think about this, right? So it came to my understanding that these individuals, it seems like within the Muslim world, they call themselves Sunni, they call themselves Shia, and I'm just realizing that all the people hate Shias, which is Iranians. For the most part, Shias are Iranians. Okay, now I want to share something with you, and you just may not believe it, but I hope you do. I I hope you do. I truly hope that you do. Okay, I'm trying to organize this here, fix this. Okay, there we go. I hope that you believe what's here. Check this out. Listen,
اسمه الأمير إيران يعني هل فيه في المستقبل حوار تعامل مع إيران مباشر رغم ما تقوم فيه في المنطقة؟
كيف أتفاهم مع واحد أو نظام لديه قناعة مرسخة بأنه نظامه قائم على أيديولوجية متطرفة منصوص عليها في دستوره ومنصوص عليها في وصية الخميني بأنه يجب أن يسيطروا على مسلمين العالم الإسلامي ونشر المذهب الجعفري الاثنى عشري الخاص فيهم في جميع أنحاء العالم الإسلامي حتى يظهر المهدي المنتظر. هذا كيف أقنعه؟ وش المصالح اللي بيني وبينه؟ كيف أتفاهم معه؟ أنا لما يكون بيني وبين مثلا دولة أخرى إشكالية نبدأ نحلها، في والله مشكلة اقتصادية، وش اللي تبغاه أنت وش اللي نبغاه إحنا، كيف نتفاهم عليه، في مشكلة سياسية مثلا مع روسيا، كيف نتفاهم في سوريا، وش مصالحك وش مصالحي، كيف نتفاهم في اليمن وش مصالحك، هذا كيف نتفاهم معه. هذا منطقة أن المهدي المنتظر سوف يأتي ويجب أن يحضروا البيئة الخصبة لوصول المهدي المنتظر، ويجب أن يسيطروا على العالم الإسلامي، وحرموا شعبهم لأكثر من 30 سنة من التنمية وادخلوهم في مرحله الجوع والبنيه التحتيه السيئه لتحقيق هذا الهدف. لن يغير رايه في يوم وليله ولا انتهت شرعيته داخل ايران. فوين نقاط الالتقاء التي يمكن ان نتفاهم فيها مع هذا النظام؟ تكاد تكون ليست موجوده. تم تجربه هذا النظام في اكثر من مرحله في وقت رفس جاري واتضح انها تمثيليات. بعد ثوره الخميني تاتي استراتيجيه التوسع حتى يغضب العالم، ومن ثم يخرجوا قائد السلم اللي وقتها كان رفس جاري حتى يكسب ثقة العالم، ومن ضمنه احنا كسب ثقتنا. وبعد الوصول إلى مرحلة أخرى وبيئة جيدة يتم إيصال قائد قوي متطرف لكي يستمر في عملية التوسع مثل ما شفنا مع نجاد في
8 سنوات
العراق وسوريا وغيرها من المواقع، ثم يأتي قائد آخر لكي يحافظ على المكتسبات حتى يرضى العالم، ومن ثم يأتي قائد متطرف لكي يستمر في نشر التوسع الإيراني. هذا لن يحدث، هذا انتهى. المؤمن لا يلدغ من الجحر مرتين، لدغنا مرة، المرة الثانية لن نلدغ. ونعرف أنه إحنا هدف رئيسي للنظام الإيراني الوصول لقبة المسلمين، هدف رئيسي للنظام الإيراني. لن ننتظر حتى تصبح معركة في السعودية، بل سوف نعمل لكي تكون معركة لديهم في إيران وليس في السعودية.
You heard what he said. He said, we will not wait till the fight is in Saudi Arabia. We will work on having the fight in Iran. Gotcha. So this going to lead to what? full-out explosion. And what else did he say? He said, we know that the Iranians, they want to destroy the Qibla. And he said, we know we are a main target for the Iranian regime. So there's lots. I tell you, there's lots of bad blood. And he said, you can't talk to them because they're waiting for the Mahdi. And if you didn't know the Mahdi, let me just just show you, right? So he said he doesn't like that they are seeking to wait for the Mahdi, right? That's what he said, right? The Mahdi. The Mahdi is a messianic figure in Islamic belief, comparable to Christian concept as the second coming of Christ. Now, there are people who believe this Mahdi is to be a descendant of Muhammad, but that's not what the Quran says. That's not what the Quran says. Messianic figure in Islamic eschatology believed to appear at the end of times to eliminate injustice, establish global Islamic kingdom, and restore righteousness. While both Sunni and Shia Muslims believe in his coming, Sunni tradition sees him as a future righteous leader from the Prophet Muhammad's bloodline, where Shia, specifically the Twelvers, believe he is the 12th Imam born in the 9th century, currently in hiding. And you know they got the Twelvers from the 12 tribes of Israel. So there's a lot of changing here because Christ would have the 12 tribes of Israel with him carrying out righteousness and justice along with the angels. Mahdi is expected to appear during the time of great global injustice, turmoil, and tyranny to fill the world with justice and peace. Sunnis believe that he has not been born yet and will appear when needed to guide the Muslim world, often accompanying the return of Christ. Shia believe the Mahdi is Muhammad al-Mahdi, the son of the 11th Imam, who was born at that time and is in hiding with the intention of returning when God permits. He is often referred to as, and he is expected to lead the forces of righteousness, unite Muslims, and in traditions fight alongside Christ against the Antichrist, who is called the Dajjal. So you have one group of Muslims who want to fight beside Christ, and you have another group who want nothing to do with. Well, there is just a lot of hatred and a lot of confusion on their end. But there's a reason this war is going to blow up everything. There's a reason for that. Now let's keep going. It reads, in another great scepter will arise from Judea, and his name is Dan, and then the Jews, the inexplicable Hebrew race who will disperse into cities and countries will be gathered together. They will be gathered together there, and they will come into Jerusalem toward their king, and they will afflict the Christian race in all the earth. Woe, woe, good people. Should think about what's about to happen now. With the reigning, the Antichrist will go forth from the lower regions and chasms of hate, and he will go and he will come into the small Geridian fish, and he is coming in the broad sea, and he will be caught by 12 fishermen, and the fishermen will become maddened toward each other. One will prevail over them, whose name is Judas, and he takes the fish for his inheritance and comes into place named Gazelle. There sells the fish for 30 pieces of silver, virgin gold by the fish. And so what they're doing and what they're saying is that this Antichrist is going to try and come back. And when they come back, they're going to try and coin it like he's coming back as Christ. Okay, and it's going to resemble certain things of the gospel, but it's not going to be actual Christ. But for people who have no idea of reading, people who don't read the gospels, they're going to be so deceived. Okay, it says her name is Injustice, because of the son of her justice will be born from her. And her surname will be Perdition, for by touching the head of the fish she will become pregnant and will conceive the Antichrist himself. Now, if you think this is far-fetched, you tell me what you think the movie Omen was for. They always have showed it that in the movie Omen, terrible, horrifying movie, by the way, all of them were scary, but it was always the woman giving birth to the Antichrist. This is what you better pay attention. And you see, the problem is Satan banks on your fear. So he'll put things in truth where he knows people will be like, well, that's scary for me. So, well, Most High didn't ask you to be scared. The Most High asked you to look up the truth. The truth is scary. Knowing the truth is scary. But what's more scary than knowing the truth? Knowing that the Most High already pronounced in the Bible, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So you can be scared, and Satan will bank on it and know that the Most High said, because you won't get that knowledge because you're a scaredy cat, you're a big baby, you're a big chicken, guess what? You're going to miss out, and it's going to be to your destruction. And he will be born from her after 3 months, and he will suckle her for 4 months. He comes to Jerusalem, becomes a false teacher. And if you didn't know, this is what the Revelation 2 and 9ers believe. They believe that they have a teacher who was born. And they're waiting to introduce him to the world. Don't believe me? Look it up. So when they're talking about these Jews, these are not the real ones. These are the ones who believe that the Christians are Goyim. Uh-oh. And he will appear quiet and gentle and guileless, and the height of his stature will be 15 feet, and the hairs of his head will reach as far as his feet, and he will be large and three-crested, and the track of his feet will be large. His eyes will be like the star which rise in the morning. His right eye will be like a lion. His lower teeth will be like the iron, and his lower jaw diamond. His right arm will be of iron, his left of copper. Right hand will be 4.5 feet long. And I think these are just like analogies of showing strength and different things. Okay. He will be long-nosed and disorderly. He also, upon his forehead, 3 letters, AKT. A signifies I deny K signifies, and I completely reject, and T, the befouled dragon. And the Antichrist will be teaching and being taught. So, what I'm thinking is that they're going to have initials somewhere between AKT, TAK, KAT, or however you want to mix that up. Okay? There's many ways to, they're going to have something like those, um, they're going to have something like those uh, names there, and it's going to equal to the 666 there. Okay. At the time, there will be an abundance of grain, wine, and olive oil, as has not been since the foundation of the world. In those times, the air will pour out half a measure of grain, and the vine branch put out 100 grape clusters. So I want you to understand they need this war. Okay, they need to bring Armageddon because they want to bring Christ back to the earth. The problem is they're not bringing the anointed Christ. They're bringing the Antichrist. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it. They urged that all of this was a part of God's divine plan. How do you know the timing of the Most High? So you mean to tell me you have communication with the Most High? You mean to tell me he came specifically to you and told you that he wants you to start war to bring the end? Brothers and sisters, this, what that professor was missing, is this will usher in the Antichrist. Global economy will crash. Everyone will go crazy. They're going to let it go crazy for a time. Watch. Watch. Bible says neighbor against neighbor. People going to fight for bread. They're going to let it be chaotic for a while. And then they're going to introduce, oh, here comes our Savior. Look, this man who speaks so eloquently and beautifully. This must be Christ. Watch now. Just watch. And the grape cluster will bear 10,000 grapes and will pour out 100 measures, and the seed of the olive tree will be complete. And there will be much fruitfulness of all kinds, and the land will be fruitful and will produce her fruits 100-fold. The Jewish nation, Jerusalemites, will take counsel, saying, come, let us make this admirable man king. And they make him king and crown him after 3 days, and he will reign for 3 years, and in his first year all the grass on the earth will fail. In the whole world there will not be found a measure of grain or half a jar of wine or no other fruit. Then there will be a mighty plague, and those on the mainland will flee to the islands, and those on the islands will flee to the mainlands. For a time a manner of disease will be upon the whole earth, and a great plague which has never occurred until that era, and the people will be deadened. If the just man is barely saved, how will the sinner appear? And the unclean spirits and the demons will go forth like the sand of the sea, and those in the abyss, and those in the crags and ravines, and they will adhere to the Antichrist, and they also will be tempting the Christians and killing the babies of the women. And they themselves will suckle from them, and then the people will be calling upon death and digging up the tombs and saying, blessed and thrice blessed are you who have already died, because you did not reach these days. And they who go down to the sea also will be saying, may the fury of your waves swallow us also, O sea. And then all flesh of the Romans, meaning Christians, Babylonians, will there be temporary joy, and while there will be temporary joy and exultation of the Jews, there will be affliction and oppression of the Romans. Who are the Romans? That was letter M. You look at the word Christians. From every necessity of the evil demons. So demons going to attack them. And earth will become like copper, and all the greenery will dry up. Every tree, every flower of the earth will fail. The lakes and the rivers and the wells will dry up. The moisture of the waters will completely dry up. And then the Antichrist will lift up a stone in his hands and say, "Believe in me, and I will make these stones into bread." And then the Jews will worship him, who are saying, "You are Christ, from whom we pray on account of you." The Christian race has grieved us greatly because the Christians have said, "Oh, Christ already came," and then the Jews say, "No, he didn't." And then the Antichrist will both saying to the Jews, "Do not be grieved with us a little while, and the Christian race will see and will realize who I am." And the Antichrist lift up his voice toward the flinty rock, saying, "Become bread before the Jews." And disobeying him, the rock becomes a dragon. And the dragon says to the Antichrist, "O you who are full of every iniquity and justice, why do you do things which you are not able?" And the dragon shames him before the Jews. Hmm. 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 And then 3 men will go forth and will condemn him as a liar and a deceiver. And these 3 men, 2 from heaven and 1 from earth, also walk before the Antichrist and say, "Woe to you, O worker of injustice and inheritor of eternal fire." They will walk in all the earth, crying out and saying to the afflicted Christians, "Hear, O sons of men, and do not worship him, because he is not the Christ, nor a God-fearing man, but he is the Antichrist." And many Christians will run to the feet of the saints. Now, I want y'all to do some critical thinking here. If the false Jews, Revelation 2 and 9 are being mentioned here, and the Christians are being mentioned here, what are these saints called? What are these saints called? What are these? There you go. See, you're gonna have to do some critical thinking. What are these saints called? What shall we do, O saints? Where shall we Christians hide? And many of the Christians will hide in the mountains and caves and the holes of the earth, and will be saved, so that the treacherous Samuel might not seize them. And who's that? That's the devil. Samuel is a fallen, by the way. Right? And when the Antichrist finds these 3 men, he will kill them with the sword. Then that spoken by the prophet David will be fulfilled. Then they will offer up bulls upon your altar, and with the Antichrist reigning and the demons persecuting, the Jews contriving vanities against the Christians, the great day of the Lord draws near, and there will be judgment and recompense, and the deception of the devil will fall in the light of the world. And the light of the world, Christ our Lord and King of glory, will flower, to whom is due all glory and honor and dominion forever. Amen. Huh. Now, it's going to get real. It's going to get real. And I want to read one last thing, right, for this portion. I was going to read the whole thing, but there's no need to read the whole thing at this moment. When you go into second Esdras, we'll start at per se. '28. It reads, "Behold, a horrible vision of parents from the parents thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians," who are the Carmanians? They are Persians, by the way. Okay. They are Parthia, north side of the Persia. Okay. The Persians resembling the Median and Persians. Okay. "Raging in wrath shall go forth as a wild boar of the wood, and with great power they shall come and join battle with them, and shall waste the portion of the land of the Assyrians. And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them, then these shall be troubled, bled, and keep silence through their power, and shall flee. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them, and consume some of them, and in their host shall be fear and dread, and strife among the kings. Behold the clouds from the east, and from the north, and to the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm. They shall smite one upon another, they shall smite down the great multitude of stars upon the earth, each their own star, and blood shall be from the sword unto the belly, and dung of men unto the camel's hoe. And there shall be great fearfulness and trembling upon the earth, that they that see the wrath shall be afraid, and trembling shall come upon them. And then shall there come great storms from the south, and from the north, and another part from the west. And the strong wind shall arise from the east, and shall open it, and the clouds which he raised up in wrath, and the star to cause fear toward the east and west shall be destroyed. It's a missile, right? The great mighty clouds shall be puffed up, full of wrath, in the star, that they may make all the earth afraid, because that's when they're going to start doing nukes, and them that dwell therein. And they shall pour out over every high and eminent place a horrible star, a nuke, fire, hail, flying swords, many waters, that our fields may be full, and all rivers with abundance of great waters. And they shall break down the cities and walls, mountains, hills, trees of woods, grass, and meadows of their corn. And then they shall go steadfastly unto Babylon, and make her afraid. And they shall come to her, besiege her, the star, and all wrath shall pour out upon her. So yes, they will besiege, they will nuke it, you name it. But they're first going to try and send a missile, which won't work. So they're like, hey, it's just time to get in there and rock and roll. There's a reason why Donald Trump wants Greenland, to protect the United States. They know, the United States understands that their time is up. That's why they said, let us nuke Iran first. It has nothing to do with Israel. It has all to do with the structure of the world economy and the illusion of Babylon the Great. Then shall the dust and smoke go up unto heaven, and all they that be about her shall bewail her. So the dust and smoke go up to heaven, that's a nuke. It will nuke the United States. And they that remain under her shall do service unto them that have put her in fear, meaning there's going to be some captivity. And thou, Asia, thou art partaker of the hope of Babylon and art the glory of her person. Now, this Asia is not China. We went over this before. This Asia is Europe. They're going for Europe as well. Showed you also in the book of Daniel. In the apocalypse of Daniel, they're going for Europe. Woe be unto you, thou wretched, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and deck thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith God, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And notice the plagues come first. So look at the United States, look at the condition of the United States, and look at the condition of Europe. Both of them run down. Both of them run down. All right, brothers and sisters. So we shared a lot of wealth of knowledge in this lesson. Okay, Edom, Ishmael, Arabs, why they're going to war, what they believe in, what they don't believe in, and really how this is going to affect you and I, no matter where you live. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, this is the road to the apocalypse. The question is, what will you do to prepare yourself to endure the Armageddon? So